What comes after the end? I don't know. Neither did they. They were just an Army engineer battalion, constructing roads and bridges deep in the middle of the Arizona nowhere. They didn't know why Armageddon had come. They'd heard radio chatter about an attack on some space-based missile platform. But who had attacked it, or why? No one knew. What they did know is that the politicians and the generals had finally ended the world. Now, everything was gone.
So, this is probably the most appropriate choice to kick off my post-apocalyptic game review series here. The original Wasteland was one of the first post-apocalyptic games to come out, which of course led to Fallout, and Fallout led to Fallout 3, which I would say popularized the genre for the modern audiences. So on the surface, Wasteland 2 seems like an intimidating game to get into, but it's really not. If you play any other tactical, turn-based role-playing game, you should know what you're getting yourself into here. I mean, it's reminiscent of the recent XCOM games. I was even reminded of old school games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Shining Force. It can be an unforgiving game, though. There is permadeath, and there are consequences to your actions in the game. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. At the beginning of the game, you can choose to either pick a pre-made squad, or you can choose to create your own custom squad. Personally, I prefer to make my own custom squad, and the options are pretty deep. You can name them, choose their gender, their religion even, their age, if they have addictions like cigarettes or drugs. You can make a mini biography about them, which is kind of neat. And you can choose a generic character portrait for them. And also you can decide their starting clothes, their hairstyle, their face type, height even. Like I said, it's pretty deep. So after that, you then assign your attribute points, which you start at 3, and you have 7 additional points to assign to whatever category you want, such as strength, speed, intelligence, luck, and so on. You then go to choose your starting skills. And right away you'll notice there's quite a few to choose from compared to, say, Fallout 3 or New Vegas even. I really like this aspect of the game. Seems with most modern games like Fallout 4, they're either trimming the skills down or they're removing them entirely. But here there's quite a few to choose from. And unlike, say, Fallout 3 where you choose like small guns or big guns, in this game they break it down into like individual guns like assault rifles, shotguns, sniper rifles, submachine guns, handguns, instead of having like one skill to govern all of them. Of course there's non-combat skills like, say, field medic and surgeon, but you'll want to have at least one surgeon on your team, otherwise you won't be able to revive your fallen teammates. There's also computer science, which is basically hacking. There's mechanical repair. There's a demolition skill, which is a fairly important skill. There's a lot of traps in the world, like landmines, or there's trapped treasure chests, or safes and whatnot. There's skills like the outdoorsman skill, which helps you avoid combat on the kind of the overworld, and it also helps you find like hidden supplies of water. Like I said, there's a lot of depth to the skills. It's pretty fun just coming up with your own classes. And speaking of that, you probably want to vary your classes, your characters up a bit. Like, it's not smart to have like all combat experts and like with no medical skills. You probably want to have a lockpicking guy. You want to have a guy for hacking. You want to have a medic character. It's also not a good idea to have everybody be proficient with the same weapon type. You'll probably want to mix up your weapon ranges, like have a submachine gun expert and like an assault rifle expert. Just smart tactically, and also if everyone's using the same weapon type, you can burn through ammo pretty quick. And ammo is somewhat spendy and limited. So once your party's set up and you're released into the world, you're given your first mission by General Vargas, who's the leader of the group you're part of called the Desert Rangers. They're basically the police force of post-apocalyptic Arizona. But after that, you're free to do as you please. You'll probably want to explore the starting area a bit, and maybe talk to a local merchant, search for some loot, things like that. It's a smart idea to explore the towns and other areas of the world. Not just for loot, but Occasionally you'll run across someone who's willing to join your party, which you start with 4 members, but you can get up to 7 total. And also occasionally you will run across someone who has a side mission for you, which obviously can lead to cash, rewards, and experience points. So once you leave the Citadel, the game changes views, and this part of the game feels kinda cheap. But then again, this was a really cheaply made game. I believe the budget was around $3 million, which is nothing compared to something like Grand Theft Auto 5. And while you're on the open world, your party is represented by this star icon here. I don't know, I wish I could have like a generic character model or something, but it's not a huge deal. Also, while you're on the open world, water is concerned. If you run out, your characters will start taking health damage. You know, it has a nice survivalist aspect to the game, I guess. Though I don't know why they didn't have food as a concern as well, but whatever. Like a lot of the classic RPGs I grew up with, like Final Fantasy and Phantasy Star, there are random encounters in the game. You can avoid them if your outdoorsman skill's high enough, but otherwise it'll switch to this isolated map here. So combat revolves around the use of action points. And action points are spent by either moving or attacking. There's other actions like healing characters or reloading your weapon, or if your gun jams, that can eat up your action points as well. It's fairly simplistic once you get used to it. Like the further you move on the grid, the more action points it costs. And different weapons have different action point costs. Like I mentioned earlier, combat is turn-based in this game. The order in which you attack seems to be based upon your character's speed and combat initiative. So, once the character's combat points are used up, their turn ends, or you can choose to end their turn early and save a combat point or 2 for the next round. There's also a system where you can target the enemy's limbs, similar to VATS from Fallout. I never really found myself using it too much. There's a slight penalty to hit when you use it, so I don't know, I use the standard attacks mostly. So once you complete a combat encounter, you're awarded some bonus XP. You can also search the bodies of your enemies for additional loot. Like if they're human enemies, a lot of times you'll find bullets or health packs, and sometimes even guns. And that's the basic loop of the game. You engage in combat, explore towns, buy and sell stuff, recruit a group member here and there, and take on side missions. Then eventually you hop in a helicopter and travel to Los Angeles, and basically start the whole process over again.
Okay then, are you ready to fly? Then get on board and make the Desert Rangers proud.
As for the graphics, I'm playing on the Xbox One, the Director's Cut version, which apparently improved the graphics somewhat. There's still nothing to write home about, but I will say that the level designs and the enemy designs are pretty well done. And the basic sound effects are pretty solid. And what voice acting there is surprisingly competent. I think it shines mostly in the music department though. Just take a listen. Well, there are some issues with this game that can really hold it back at times, and be kind of irritating after a while. Oh, for one thing, the camera sometimes has a mind of its own. During combat, it'll just wander off and do its own thing. There's also an issue with the targeting system. Like, say if you're trying to use a skill on a teammate or an object perhaps, like a safe, it just feels off and kind of flawed. And that could be because the game was made with PC gamers in mind. But it's still annoying after it happens about 250,000 times. The local map can be kind of hard to read too, and you can't zoom in on it for some odd reason. The mission objectives can also be kind of vague at times. You might do something out of order, or maybe you'll fart in someone's general direction, and the mission will be voided out because, well, you weren't supposed to do that at that time. This is more of a subjective complaint, but I feel the game can be a bit too long-winded at times. Like, certain conversations go on forever, you know. And I don't mind reading, but I'm not trying to read a book here, I'm trying to play a video game. There's one area, for example, you enter into. There's like 3 really long conversations in a row. Yeah, you can skip over it, but you might miss out on some vital information or a side quest. So yeah, it can really test your patience. Again, I don't mind reading, but they could have trimmed that down somewhat. As far as glitches go, there's not many huge ones. I had the game crash twice. That was in about, I don't know, at least 60 hours of playtime. So that's not too bad. Wasteland 2 takes place 150 years after the nuclear war. Most of mankind was wiped out. Those that have survived now face new threats. Radiation, starvation, as well as everyday threats of violence from bandits and mutants. So the apocalypse rating was a thing I came up with to measure just how well the game captures the feeling of being in a post-apocalyptic world. So Wasteland 2 is your standard issue nuclear apocalypse. You have your radiation to deal with, you have your destroyed cities, your ruined landscapes. Of course, you have to deal with lawless bandits, as well as bloodthirsty mutants. It's all stuff you've seen before, but it's done pretty well here. I especially like how most people are unaware of what life was like before the war, which makes sense seeing as 150 years has passed. Overall, things are pretty bleak and grim. There's a lot of humor in the game, actually, including a lot of movie and video game references.
I can tell you all about my games if you want. I'm especially proud of my prized possession in the case behind me. That's my Super Scope. You aim it at the TV screen and fire just like a gun, except without all the actual killing and violence.
The humor can take you out of the game a little bit, but I'm still going to give it an 8 out of 10 on a post-apocalyptic rating scale, as the world just looks and feels the way it should. As for the game itself, overall I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm going to give it a bit of a pass due to the low budget. There's still some things that really irritated me and tested my patience. There's some things I really liked, such as the fun character building, the solid combat, as well as the writing and role-playing aspects. Yeah, overall, 7 out of 10, and thanks for watching.